you would be able to take your 40 or $50,000 a year income and successfully make it in certain countries around the world, especially if you were making that money off of your computer. Special shout out to Steven. He says, I have no healthcare degree, but I can be a door to door Dr. Phil. You know what? I don't know. I personally might go door to door and be a Dr. Feel Good, but I don't. I kind of feel like, maybe being a plumber so that I can lay pipe at everybody while the husband's at work kind of thing. But I don't think. But truthfully, yeah, if you're getting paid a decent quantity of money. So here's the thing: you don't necessarily have to have the actual degree itself. In order for you to do certain jobs, you have to have certain certifications. It doesn't matter if you went to college first, but typically you get the knowledge to take the test from going to college, but you get the experience on how to do the job from working in the field. They're not the same. The same way you take the driver's test, you have to do the written exam and then you have to do the actual practical exam. That's the same thing with every other job in life. You have the written exam that shows that you know stuff, and then you have the actual application of things. So, if you wanted to be a door to door healthcare professional, it would require you to figure out what certifications you would need to perform that type of task. And then you would have to pass the tests and complete the certifications to perform that task. So you don't necessarily need a 4 year degree. You might need like online tutor or something like that, a private teacher that could pay you, or not pay you, but you pay them to show you the stuff that you don't understand so that you could pass that test. But that's really all you need is that certification. So do you need a 4 year degree to be a doctor? No, but you do need to go to med school and learn how to stick needles in the bodies and take blood pressure and administer medication. Now, how do you get into med school? Well, med school makes it a requirement for you to get the bachelor's degree first in something. Now, by default, because you can't learn how to stick people with needles until after you get a bachelor's degree, they just bottleneck that occupation to having to go to a 4 year institution so that you can qualify to get into another 4 year institution so that you can get the field experience to get into the medical field. Now, for those individuals who don't go directly to a 4 year institution, you come out of high school, go to a 2 year institution for 3 or 4 years, then go to your 4 year institution for another 3 or 4 years, and then go to your another 4 year institution for another 3 or 4 years, where you have just spent 12 years in college so that you're a doctor, right? And then you're going to intern in a hospital until you get your legs under you and have your own private practice. But once you get to your own private practice, you can either work out of the office and have all your patients come to you, or you can commute to all of your patients. It's harder to commute to all of your patients. But if you charge a decent premium to commute to your other patients, you could probably make a larger quantity of money and cover the cost of commuting. So we're going to be covering that next week. Now, after we give you guys all the information that you need on Wednesdays to figure out where you want to live and where you want to put your money for offshore investments, then we give you guys the information Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to help you guys with your personal development, your relationship information, networking, socialization, building your brand, promotion discussions, raise discussions, negotiations with your boss, retirement discussions, severance packages for termination, whether it's willful termination or involuntary termination. All of these things we cover that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then Sunday we have our questions and comments from the fans. And just like the information that we got from Michael from yesterday, some information that is provided sometimes ends up turning into another show where we cover the whole concept in depth. So there's always something for you guys to learn. And even if you don't have time to linger for the few hours that we're going to be here some of the time, it's always a good idea to at least pop in and see what we got going on or swing back around and watch the show on the replay. That way you always get a grasp of what we got going on because we have a whole archive of information. And you would not want to miss a lot of the information that we've got going on because it would definitely make you more successful if you had full access to all this information. So, after we've gotten through our morning announcements, it's been a long day, guys. I'm eating crackers for breakfast at almost midnight. I got some pizzas in the fridge. We gonna cook them up after the show, but it has been a long day. Now, most people are gonna think that you're gonna need a significant amount of capital to invest in real estate. It's gonna be a common belief that starting this particular endeavor requires tens of thousands of dollars. However, it is possible to begin a real estate empire in cities like Istanbul with as little as $50. And that's what we're going to be getting. We're like, whoa. I found that out. I was like, what? This is an exploration of the exact unconventional method that can be used and the method the big players may not openly discuss with everybody. So anyone can start building their own international property portfolio from anywhere in the world. And we're just going to start off by doing that with Istanbul. Okay, so he's talking about being a phlebotomist, typically taking 4 to 12 weeks for a certification program with some accelerated options completed in as little to 2 to 4 weeks. See that? So, 4 years in college to do a 4 week program to get the certificate. Isn't that some bullshit? $100,000 worth of student debt for $1,000 worth of classes. Damn. And I'm calling it $1,000 worth of classes because if you're doing 4 weeks, you're likely doing 4 1 hour classes. You're probably paying at worst $250 each. So you pay $1,000 for 4 weeks worth of accelerated courses, and you would have got your certificate. Or you go to a university and you do 18 semesters to get the same piece of paper. Oh shit! Look, this is crazy. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, the feeling of needing a massive bank account to even think about this investment opportunity sounding familiar, then you've got to understand it's not the case. Now, ask yourself, does scrolling through property listings in beautiful historic cities lead to a sinking sense of despair at the prices? Because uh, many have been there and known exactly what it feels like to be looking at a property somewhere and not being capable of affording it, or the anxiety and panic that overwhelms you when you think about all the things that you have to pay for now. And what if you took some of the money that you have and put it towards this other endeavor? But what if the barrier to entry isn't the money? What if it is the method? That's going to be something we're going to be talking about today. The average pay for a phlebotomist is 34,000 annually. Now, isn't that funny though? You're going to a 4 year institution so that you can get a job like this. It's going to pay you 43,000 a year. You're going to owe them over $100,000. It's going to take you 30 years to pay them back. $43,000 a year is your income. You've got a bachelor's degree plus this certificate. You've got this prestigious job to identify yourself as at least a scientist, if not a doctor of some sort. And you're making less money. Now, you're making $43,660 annually doing this. But again, I tell you, you could be making 72 to $85,000 at a Waffle House. You could be making $65,000 at a Wendy's. You could be making 55 to $75,000 at McDonald's. You could be the door greeter at Walmart makes $55,000. The person in the garden center that's not there to load your mulch onto the back of the truck makes $55,000. Uh, like these low grade jobs. Go work at Amazon. Work at Amazon. 55 to $57,000. Like legit, bro. So yeah, a 4 week program so that you can make less money than a full time teacher. Uh, but it's a prestigious name, right? It's a prestigious name. With just by looking at the name, most people couldn't even tell what that job title is, phlebotomist, right? However, $43,000, right? Now you can work for yourself and make double that just doing something different. And if you did something different that you actually enjoy doing, you might find yourself getting paid 60, $70,000 a year and loving what you're doing the whole time that you're doing it. This is why we always talk to you guys about there's got to be another way. There's got to be another way. And I look for it every day of the week. You know, you can make over 200,000 just driving a big rig yearly. Bro, who said you had to drive the rig? In today's society, you can buy a Tesla truck for 100 grand and your ass can sleep in the back. You ain't gotta drive shit. You know what I mean? Hardest part about the Tesla rig is that you got to stop and charge that bitch up, but you ain't got to drive shit. You put that bad boy on autopilot. School only take about 6 weeks, yeah, a month and a half, and you're making $200,000 driving trucks. But you know what kind of skill you need that most Americans don't have in 2025? The ability to drive a manual shift vehicle. I mean, but they're gonna teach you that when you go to start trying to drive a rig. But if you knew how to drive a manual shift vehicle, it'd be easy for you to get in there and start driving a rig. It wouldn't be that hard at all. Right? But so really the two things that you learn about driving a rig is how to shift gears and how to make wide turns. That's it. That's it. That's it. And you're making 200 grand a year. You don't need to know the Pythagorean theorem. You don't need to know the formula for pi. You don't need to know the perimeter times the area of the volume. All you need to know is how to make wide turns and shift gears, right? And don't be late. I'd get fired. I'm late 13 times a month. Now, this is why we give you guys different information about different things all over the place because it helps you guys look for other ways, right? So, what if the whole system that has been taught to everybody, save for a huge down payment on something, get a mortgage, buy a property, cash up front, or all of your savings down and then monthly premiums is completely outdated? What if there's a backdoor method? Because I know a lot of people are afraid of the back door because dropping the soap has been prohibited. You got to realize this isn't just a story, it's going to be a blueprint. It's about dismantling the belief that real estate is only for the wealthy. Now, it's going to explore how a tiny, almost symbolic amount of money can be the first step towards building a real portfolio in one of the most dynamic cities on earth. And we're going to be talking about Istanbul today. So by the end of tonight's show, it won't just be a belief that it's possible. The knowledge to start taking the first step will be clear. So this isn't going to be a get rich quick scheme. I never give you get rich quick schemes, but it is a get wise slowly strategy. And this is going to be how pocket change can be turned into power over time. Like Michael tells y'all all the time, money is power. But if you don't know how to get money, you don't know how to get power. Steve says these truck drivers these days are big, so I'm sure they know a lot about pie. You know why all the truck drivers are overweight? Because they don't get any exercise. The same way I sit in this chair doing this podcast for God knows how long every day of the week, they sit in a chair and watch the road pass them by God knows how many hours a day every day of the week. They're not getting any cardio outside of going to the bathroom at certain truck stops. They spend a lot of time consuming sugar so that they can have the energy to keep their eyes awake, and then consuming caffeine to keep their eyes awake. And that messes up their metabolism because you have caffeine as a blocker and then sugar as a stimulant to trigger the dopamine so that they can have the adrenaline to stay awake and everything. And it leads to weight gain. You have fat female truckers, you have fat male truckers, you have but if you think about when they started the job, not all of them were heavy set. You know what I mean? Not all of them were heavy, but at $200,000 a year, I don't give a fuck. You do that for 5 years, you know what I mean? You got you 200,000 a year for 5 years. You got you a million short whatever you paid for the cost of travel back and forth around the country and resident stay, which is why a lot of truckers will live in a truck. You know, if you only got to spend 50 grand a year out of your 200 grand a year driving trucks, you're putting away 150 grand a year. You do that for 10 years, you got $1.5 million. You can quit. You ain't got to do it forever. But if you're living 200 grand a year and then you're giving that 200 grand a year to somebody else so that they can have a better standard of living, you're always broke. You're always working 40 years as a truck driver when you could only did 5 to 10 and said, fuck this, I'm going to live off the interest. Now, the obsession with Istanbul for many doesn't start with the spreadsheets the way it does with me. It's going to start with the call to prayer echoing across the Golden Horn, the smell of roasted chestnuts on a winter evening, or the beautiful chaos of the Grand Bazaar, and the silent thousand-year-old gaze of the Hagia Sophia. Hopefully, I said that correctly. Now, this city isn't just a place, it's a living, breathing character in a story of human history. And actually, on Netflix, they're starting to put out a lot of dramas and series from Istanbul. Those folks can act. It's not all of it is in English, but those folks can act. They got some pretty decent plots. I'm sitting over here like Americans is slacking. You start watching international movies on Netflix, you're like, yo, unknown stars, and they out here doing action packed. Not as many as explosions as America, but I mean, they got action packed, they got fight scenes, they got drama, they got chaos, they got background story inside of a background story. It's crazy, and then the scenery is beautiful. They actually in between, yep, just like Turkey, in between um storylines, they will do a cut scene where they give you a glimpse of the city. It's like two people curse each other out, and then we're gonna switch over to another location with other characters in the show, and how they'll do that switch instead of just um blacking out the screen and black and lighting it back up in a different location. They will zoom out of the room where they're arguing at and then have this panoramic view of the city and then zoom back in on the other side. And now you're in the other conversation. I'm like, well, shit, that's dope, but they're far from one another. Look at all these buildings. God damn. They look like 30 New York cities meshed together with two Hong Kongs in the middle of it. Like, damn, that's a lot of buildings. But it looks like it's all made of stone. I'm like, sheesh. And this gigantic statue that's out there, like, oh, I'm like, I love it. I love it. Okay. Now, look, for centuries, this place was the center of the world, a bridge between Europe and Asia, a crucible of empires. The idea of owning a piece of this area is a powerful dream, not as a tourist, but as a stakeholder. And many spend hours online looking at apartments in Kadakoi with sea views or restored wooden houses in Uskudar. And it is a romantic dream that has always come crashing down against the same brutal walls that everybody else has problems with in America. That price. A modest two-bedroom apartment in a desirable, well-connected district could easily command a price that is simply astronomical for the average person. So, as of early 2026, this means anywhere from 250,000 to over $400,000 for a decent place in the central area is what you're looking for. And I mean, a lot of people are going to look at the prices in California and say, that's not a lot. You got some $3.5 million houses. But if this is decent, if you're looking at $250,000 to $500,000 for a decent place to live, mm, can you think about what expensive would look like? Right? Then is going to come traditional advice that 20 to 25% down payment is needed. So for a $300,000 property, that's going to be $60,000. Sometimes $75,000 for the down payment. Then you got to remember the closing cost is not part of the down payment. So you're putting up like 60,000 or $75,000, and then you're potentially putting up another 10 or $15,000 for the closing cost, right? And then the taxes. So for someone starting with um, next to nothing, that number isn't a goal. It's a gate, locked and barred. You understand? So it can feel like being on the outside of a magnificent party with one's face pressed against the glass. The music is playing, people are celebrating inside, but the ticket is missing. So you can't get in. And this is the old world of real estate. So, a world that is built on the idea that you need to have a lot of money to make a lot of money. While you might need to spend a little bit of money to make some money, and then you could take the profits that you got from that and spend a little bit more money to make even more money. It is a system that is designed to keep most people out because you don't have the upfront cost to invest to get things started, or if you had the upfront cost to get things started, but you didn't successfully get the wheels up under you to keep rolling, you find yourself not being able to prosper in that particular environment. That frustration is common, and that sense of being locked out of the single greatest wealth building tool in history is going to be devastating to a lot of people. The passion might be there for you to expand on your real estate investment portfolios, and the willingness to do the work might also be there, but the money is not there. And according to every traditional expert, that is the end of the story. It's a dead end for a lot of people. Then a question begins to emerge, a question that changes everything. Well, what if one isn't playing the game, but just playing with the wrong rules? What if the key isn't to save for decades to buy one front door, but to find a completely different hidden entrance to multiple doors? This realization doesn't happen overnight, though. It is born from months of frustration, months of research, digging into the weirdest corners of finance and real estate, looking for another way, which is what we do on this and that every day of the week. The barrier isn't just a bank account, it's a mental block. It requires unlearning everything one thinks they know about owning property. That journey into a new way of thinking starts with an obvious deep dive into the city itself. Because to find a secret in a market, one must first understand its soul. So you're buying into before investing a single dollar. And it is crucial to understand Istanbul is not as a tourist, but as an investor when you're going to be doing these investments, when you start putting this money in. So one has to know the fundamentals of any market that they're going to enter before they get in there. So don't spend your money before you figure out what's going on. You're not passing through, you're here to stay to have that long term value. So, what are the strengths of the market? What's the weaknesses? Its history of bouncing back from a fall and its plan for the future. They typically price that in to the market. Investing without this knowledge isn't investing, it's just gambling. So, let's do that homework. Let's look at what Istanbul isn't showing everybody, why it's not just a pretty face, but a strategic place to put money for the long haul. First, just look at the map. Istanbul's power comes from its geography. The city's heart is the Bosphorus Strait, a 30-kilometer long waterway that is a strategic miracle. It is the only sea passage between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Side question: why do we have a Black Sea, but we don't have a White Sea, but we do have a Red Sea? I think that's not fair. The women have their own sea, and then the black guys got their sea, but nobody else got one. I think we should conquer some stuff. Make a call to Trump. You know he likes to take stuff that's got oil in it. Anyway, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea connecting Eastern Europe and Central Asia with the world's oceans. So this isn't just a river; it's a global trade, and it's going to be a super highway of trades where Istanbul has held the keys for all of the trades here for nearly 3,000 years. And its narrowest point to the strait is just 700 meters wide, a geographical choke point that has given the city immense power throughout the history. So think about what that means, because it means investing in a city that sits on one of the most critical logical arteries on the planet. And it's not just an ancient history. This strategic spot is being beefed up by massive new infrastructure projects like three huge suspension bridge and the undersea Eurasia tunnel. And actually, then there's the new Istanbul airport, which opened in 2018 with the goal of being one of the busiest travel hubs in the world, aiming to handle over 200 million passengers a year. So, this is a statement of intent where Istanbul plans to be a central node in the web of global travel and commerce for the 21st century. Michael says, I used the framing technique to master something. If I can't explain it to you, it's in simple terms, then I don't know it yet. Oh, I teach all my students that. You know that you know it when you can teach it to somebody else. I tell them all the time. I also tell them those who can do and those who can't teach. So, hey, aren't you teaching? Yeah, well, I couldn't do what I was trying to but I'm going to do this though. Now, when investing in Istanbul, one isn't just buying into a local housing market. One is buying into a city with a geographic cheat code, a nexus of continents, cultures, and commerce. That provides an incredible strong foundation for a long-term value, a foundation that has endured for millennia and is still being fortified today. Now, let's talk history because the city's past tells you how it will handle the future. Istanbul's timeline is staggering. It was the Greek colony of Byzantium in 660 BC, then renamed Constantinople, Constantinople in 330 CE, serving as the Constantinople served as the capital of the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman empires for over 1,600 years. Here we go. The Strait of Hormuz is 30 miles wide. We were talking about that. Now, this city has seen it all. It has been the capital of Christian and Islamic empires. Its population swelled to over half a million during its golden age, making it the world's largest city. It was protected by the legendary uh, Theo- Theodosians and the walls, which held off sieges for centuries. So that was Theodosian walls. All right, a little bit of a history lesson. And it was stacked in 1204, conquered by Sultan Mehmed II in 1454, and after a 53-day siege, and reinvented itself time and time again to what we have now. Yeah, those crusades, the Knights of the Round Table. Well, yeah, yeah. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. But where do you think Camelot was? On a side note, I have always wanted to get one of those Knights of the Round Table type things to put into my house, the Knights Temples or the Knights Templars. hmm So, why does all of this information matter to an investor? Because this history shows an almost unbelievable ability to be resilient, unlike cities that are just coming out of years of oppression. This city has been through siege, conquest, earthquakes, and the fall of empires, and every time it has risen again. It has a culture, gravity that consistently pulls people, trade, and power back to its center. After the Turkish Republic was founded in 1923, many thought Istanbul's best days were over, but they were wrong. The city's population has exploded to over 17 million people today, and it adds nearly 200,000 new residents each year from migration alone, creating a relentless baseline demand for housing, which is fantastic for you. This isn't a flash in the pan boom town. An investor is buying into a city that has been a center of gravity for civilization for nearly 3,000 years. Its value isn't speculative, it's etched into its very stones. So Istanbul has the geographic and the history of one of the greatest places to go to make some money, right? Well, what about today's economy? Is it still a powerhouse? Absolutely. Istanbul is classified as an alpha global city by research networks like GAWC, GAWC, recognizing it. as a vital hub in the world's economy. So it generates about a third of Turkey's entire GDP. Tourism is a massive driver. After bouncing back from travel disruptions, the city was welcoming around 16 million visitors a year. The Grand Bazaar alone, with its 4,000 shops, can see up to half a million visitors in a single day. This constant flow of people fuels a strong demand for short term rentals. However, an honest investor also has to look at the risk, and Istanbul has a lot of them. The biggest is geological. The city lies near the North Anatolian Fault, and the risk of a major earthquake is a serious concern. This has driven a huge shift in the market towards new earthquake resilient buildings, which often command a premium. And of course, there's economic volatility. So while property prices have shot up in Turkish layer, with some neighborhoods seeing a nominal growth of 25 to 30%, the picture is more complex after factoring in inflation. So real growth has been more modest, sometimes just a few percent. However, for the foreign investor holding hard currency like dollars and euros, the liar's depreciation can create a significant discount, making prime real estate much more affordable than it would be otherwise. So, looking at the whole picture, the unmatched geography, the resilient history, the powerful economy, and the real risks, the long term fundamentals are overwhelmingly strong. Now, this is a market worth betting on. The only people remaining is how to do with the limited capital that you have. That's the only people that are remaining. You want to know how to get that done. Before getting into investing into the methods, it's important to ground this dream in reality. Many people, perhaps single men working remotely, wonder if they can actually build a life in Istanbul. So, key question must be answered. Can a man live long term in Istanbul on something like $3,000 a month? Well, the answer is yes, and astoundingly yes. $3,000 a month budget is enough to live comfortably alone, cover all needs, and still have money for dating and a social life and planning for the future. Here's a rough monthly breakdown for digital nomads. Rent for one or two bedroom apartment in a decent, well connected, but non luxury neighborhood will run about $900 to $1,300 a month. Food, housing, and items will be around $500 to $700. Utilities, including fast internet for remote work plus a phone, will cost about $250 to $350. And for transportation and basic leisure, using public transit, occasional taxis, and going out, budget another $200 to $300 in just in case. That leaves around $200 to $400 a month purely for savings and investing. Shit, that's way better than what we got going on in America. Now, this type of budget allows for one person to build a life, not just pass through as a tourist. And that's going to matter, especially if you're serious and your relationship goals are at the top of your list, somewhere in the top five. For those looking for a family oriented partner in Istanbul, they will find that their goals are aligned with the local culture. Many women in Turkey are raised in a culture that values family, long term commitment, and marriage over casual dating. Americans got a lot of competition because the men that are looking to stop and the women are looking to keep going, all the men are going to fly out. So, to attract a family oriented woman, the focus should be on being emotionally steady, reliable, and financially responsible. So, this budget and savings plan allows a man to present himself as a stable, future oriented man. It shows that he's building a life. As things get serious, her family's opinion will become more important. So it's necessary to be respectful, clear about your intentions, and patient with the process. Don't rush it to the next phase. The ability to show there is a plan isn't just about money, it's about demonstrating reliability as a partner for the future. After weeks of immersion in all the data, history, and culture of Istanbul, an aspiring investor can find themselves right back where they started, starting at the same insurmountable wall of money. The why of investing is going to be clear here, but the how still remains elusive. The frustration is going to build, and it is in the moment of nearly giving up that a breakthrough often happens. We call those miracles, but it doesn't come as some complex financial formula. It is a simple question. Why is one actually trying to buy? You have to ask yourself, is it the goal to buy a specific apartment with four walls and a roof? Or is it to buy exposure to the Istanbul real estate market? Is it is the goal to own a home or to build wealth through it? That's what you need to figure out. Okay, you fact checked. Very good. This is a peer reviewed podcast. Michael says, yes, you can live very comfortably in Istanbul at $3,000 a month, as it is considered a high budget relative to the local cost of living. You're going to save a lot of money going to Istanbul. Now, the second those two goals are separated, determining why you're buying and whether or not you're buying to keep or buying to invest, the realization dawns that the fixation has been on the traditional physical model of ownership. It's like trying to buy an entire palace when all that's really needed to get started is a single brick. This is going to be that aha moment. So the big moment shift where one must stop thinking about buying properties and start thinking about buying pieces of the property market is going to become a thing. Boom. What if we're possibly, hold on, he said, a single person can live comfortably for 1,000 to 1,500, while a couple can manage on 2,500. Right, but I overshot it by 3,000 so that you had around $400 to $500 to invest. So living comfortably, uh, because even if you go in there as a single person, you're not going to stay there for long. So if you're going there as a single person for 2,500, you can live off of 1,000 or 1,500. Um, that means you got 1,500 to invest. You get to a partner, you start you up a family, you're spending 2,500 on family. That's you still got $500 to invest. So you can take 3,000 out there and invest strong if you're doing this for the money, or party hard if you're doing this for being a tourist and doing it for leadership. But it leaves while it might leave a lot of room for leisure. It A lot of the millionaire mindsets are not going to look at having that extra money lying around for leisure. They're going to be looking at that extra money lying around for investments and financial success. Because the leisure comes after you don't have to go to work anymore. When you have to go back out and make the principal back because you spent the principal, you're forever starting over. When your principal is so high that the dividends from your principals doubles or triples your standard of living, you don't have to do anything else. You just live. And that's when you have more leisure time. So, what if it were possible to own a fraction of a new apartment building going up in a growing district? What if one could hold a tiny share in a portfolio of short term rentals catering to millions of tourists? What if instead of needing $300,000 to buy one apartment, one could use $300 to buy a tiny piece of 10 apartments? Health insurance for foreigners, 50 to $150 a month. Timeshares. Oh, I don't think I'm talking about timeshares because if you're buying into it to get a profit, it's not a timeshare. I hate timeshares though. I hate timeshares because why the fuck am I spending all this money all year so that I can utilize this property for 2 weeks? And it's limited and restricted. It is 2 weeks that somebody else didn't already book. I'm not doing that. But when you start thinking about this, so look, that's old school thing. He's thinking about timeshares. Suddenly, the game isn't about capital; it is about access, right? The barrier isn't money here; it's the vehicle. It's like trying to use a sledgehammer on a door that just needs a key, and that key has a name: fractional ownership. You're calling it timeshares, um, not necessarily the same thing. So this is going to lead a rabbit down a hole into a world where technology is breaking down assets one reserve at a time for the super rich. So when it comes to timeshare, say no like Nancy Reagan. Um, I can agree with that, but when it comes to um, that fractional ownership, you should probably say yes, like Monica Lewinsky, because you're going to get paid off of this. So $50 suddenly goes from being basically useless to being a powerful tool in this dynamic. It isn't enough to buy a doorknob, but it is more than enough to buy the first brick. And with the first brick, the building can begin. So once the mindset shifts, the practical step becomes clear. But this isn't about just throwing money at a risky idea. It is about building a stable financial basis, especially for the digital nomad with a fluctuating income. The key is a core satellite strategy that I've told you guys before. The core is going to be a stable part and then long term foundation, where the satellite is for small term, quick calculated experiments. Like first, that $50 investment. Before doing anything else, a safety net is going to be required. For a man building a life abroad, this is going to be a non negotiable expectation for behavior. So the first goal is to build an emergency fund, get that 3 to 5 months basic out there, building your living expenses, then get your high yield savings accounts set up out there. Then you want to practice individual uh, and any future family investments where you don't have to worry about your income gaps when you start utilizing capital towards friends and family or unexpected emergencies. So this is going to be the foundation of that responsibility. Once the emergency fund is in place, the core investment strategy should be simple and low costing. So this is going to mean over there in Istanbul, you're going to be grabbing low cost ETFs or index funds, and these are going to be the ones that hold the tiny pieces of hundreds of thousands of companies. So there is no need to pick individual stocks. It is a possibility of just starting with something as small as 50 to the $100, and then through certain platforms that allow fractional shares, you can just invest in certain things that can turn you over a decent quantity of revenue. The best setup for a digital nomad is to automate this. So you want to set up an auto transfer of like $100 or $300 a month into a brokerage account and have it automatically buy one or two low fee global or broad market ETFs, which when we discussed earlier how the pricing broke down, you'd have around $400 to $500 to do this with, which means you have a guaranteed quantity of money to put up. This is going to be the wealth building engine. While it's not all that sexy, it does work. Now, for the exciting part, once a core is being founded and money is going in there every month, a small slice of the investment budget, maybe 10 to 20%, can be allocated to exploring those unorthodox assets. Now, this is where the journey truly begins because this is where the micro real estate crowdfunding comes in. Imagine a developer wants to build apartments in Esenyurt. They go to a digital platform and raise the money by selling shares for as little as $50 each. An investor can review the project and buy a share, become a fractional owner. They get a slice of the rental income and any profit when it is sold. There are real estate investment apps that do this, like Lambda, where you can get on there, put your money up there, and then put it towards certain real estate investment opportunities and then get capital back. All right. This provides a low entry barrier, diversification, and passive management. In Turkey, this market is regulated by the Capital Markets Board, CMB, which adds a layer of security, but it is still high risk. Projects can fail. Due diligence is going to be essential, right? Michael says to stay in Istanbul longer than a standard 90-day tourist visa, you must obtain a residence permit. Well, a lot of countries around the world right now are starting to do those digital nomad visas, and you typically only qualify for residency when you have guaranteed long-term stay already granted to you from the government. So you might have to do a 30-day and then find yourself switching over to a digital nomad or a work visa or a business visa in order to get there because they usually have a work visa when you're working for somebody else or a business visa where you are the business establishing business in their country. And they a lot of the times offer about 12 months and in some situations as much as 5 years for that business visa. So this is going to be exactly how one can start doing this. So you have to find a platform that's offering shares in a new resident project, confirm the purchase, and just like that, a tiny slice of a building in Istanbul is owned. The first dividends might only be like $1.25, but it is proof that the machine is working. That first $50 is the tuition for the satellite portfolio. It opens the door to other orthodox assets or unorthodox assets as well, all of which are high risk and should only be a small portion of the plan, but you can rock quite a few plans at the same time. With micro real estate, this could involve buying a fraction of a parking space or a storage unit in a dense city. Then those investments can generate stable incomes. You have private businesses like crowdfunding. Uh, One can take small stakes in local Istanbul businesses, and it is a way to invest in that local economy. But many startups in this fashion can fail. So, niche collectibles is another thing that you can do. And this includes buying fractional shares in things like fine art or rare Turkish carpets. And this is going to be a highly speculative investment opportunity and should only be done with money that you can truly afford to lose, meaning you're going to put this money up for it and you're not going to benefit from that at all. Michael says as of 2026, you must purchase a residential permit with at least 200,000 US dollars to qualify for a real estate residence permit. This value must be officially recorded on the title deed. That's another way to get in. So that's a good way to get in. You can get in there to get the residential, to get the residency permit, buy yourself a house, and then get the residency. But and then you got to stay there for a certain period of time. But if you're going there on, like I said, work visa or visa or a business visa, because big businesses like Shell, Chevron, and all those guys can go over there and do stuff, and they don't have to uh, get residency in that fashion. They can establish a business there and then generate sales and create jobs there, and that will be the catalyst to aid them towards getting their residency status. But it just requires you to meet certain thresholds because once you're crossing over $200,000 a year, a lot of countries will consider that wealthy, and a lot of countries will afford you with that residency. So you got to really do your research as to which country has the right um, authorizations that you're capable of qualifying for. Because while you might want to go to that country, you might just be there for 3 months because you ain't got the capabilities to qualify to stay there for longer. Now, if you're finding this information valuable and if you're starting to see that there are differences to thinking about building wealth, make sure that you do me a favor if you haven't done so already is hit that subscription button, like, and then hit the notification button because more strategies like this will be shared and you won't want to miss it. This is going to be the journey that we can take together depending on how motivated you are. Now, he says, interesting note, same neighborhoods are closed or some neighborhoods are closed to foreign residents due to high density, and there are 1,160 closed neighborhoods. Interesting. Interesting. Well, I would say that if I was just going over there to flip some properties and probably just check into a hotel, um, because that would be the best way to make yourself successful. So, how does an individual get from a single $50 investment to a real portfolio? Building an empire in this context does not mean owning 100 buildings. It means a diversified portfolio of dozens of income streams that create a significant river of passive income. And I agree that this is truly passive because outside of doing a little bit of the background work, there will be a little bit of effort involved. You're going to pick up the property by putting cash down and signing a contract, and your stress is gone. The secret is the disciplined combination of a core and satellite strategy powered by compounding interest. So let's use that $3,000 a month digital nomad budget as an example. After living expenses, there's about $300 to invest each month. First $200 goes to emergency fund until it's full, and then after that, the full 300 is allocated to the new method. $250 is going to go to the core, and this is automatically invested into low cost ETFs or index funds. And this is going to be your foundation for long-term stability and growth. The $50 is going to go to the other $50 out of the 300 is going to go to the satellite area. And this is going to be the experimental funds. This is used to make one carefully chosen investment in a real estate crowdfunding project or another unorthodox asset. This strategy is going to be powerful because it allows for a good quality of life enabling you social activities, and making one attractive as a partner. So you find yourself being more attractive. Now, it's going to demonstrate financial responsibility, which is crucial for a family oriented woman and her family. And it gradually builds real wealth that can support a future spouse and children. So, this kind of empire isn't a collection of shiny towers, it's a spreadsheet where the core of it is a growing pile of stable global index funds, and the satellites are a sprawling web of hundreds of tiny states and fractions from rent in Cardinal, where revenue from the shop in Bayongu and a slice of a new building in Kagithane. I said all of those backwards. He said one baby step at a time until you learn to run. Or you could hit the ground running and have epic fail, whichever one you decide to do. I prefer the former, baby steps. Now, together, putting this stuff together, you're going to form a resilience in your portfolio and growing sources of income. So it's going to be an empire built on a solid foundation, which, with strategic bricking, can place you right at the top. It isn't going to be fast, and it isn't going to allow you to exist without a decent quantity of patience. But the path is real and it is actually open and accessible. So let's circle back. How does one build a real estate empire in Istanbul with only $50? It's done by changing the definition of the word empire. It requires building a solid financial plan that allows for a good life and a family planning scenario while systematically growing your wealth. It's going to start with a mindset shift where the realizations that the goal isn't just risky, where you're throwing bets around. It is also, excuse me, it's also about building stable financial cores and then using a small part of a portfolio to explore creative opportunities. Then the method is going to be followed. An emergency fund is built, core investment to the safe, lowest funds are automated. And tools like micro real estate crowdfunding are used for those small satellite experiments. And the first $50 isn't the whole strategy, it's the entry ticket to learn the game. Finally, there is a commitment to the strategy. Scaling is achieved using compounding, consistent monthly contributions, and a balanced core satellite approach. Profits are reinvested and slowly, brick by brick, a portfolio that is both stable and opportunistic is going to be built. Building a real financial future isn't about having a ton of cash. It's going to be about creating, disciplining, and providing patience. The traditional gatekeepers want people to think they can't play. The truth is, anyone can create their own game and probably make it a smarter one. So here's going to be the challenge. Don't just take this as fact. Start your own research tonight and look up low cost global ETFs and real estate crowdfunding. You might actually learn a lot more out of real estate crowdfunding than what you thought. And then pay attention in a market that is going to be of interest to you. There's no need to invest a dime a day. Just take the first steps in educating yourself as to what the market is doing. That's going to be the first brick in your empire. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So you just got to keep putting your right foot in front of your left until you get to your destination. And the journey to a real estate empire can begin with as little as $50. So if you want to learn more about how to vet the platforms and analyze specific deals, make sure that you watch some of the videos that we got coming up sometime next week with 5 red flags to spot a crowdfunding deal. And please make sure that you share your thoughts in the comments section down below or off to the right if you're on the shorts reel. And then ask yourself, what makes what market are you most interested in? What is the biggest barrier that you feel right now that you're facing, which is preventing you from being successful? Let's keep this conversation going and let's keep trying to figure out ways to make things better for ourselves by finding the things inside of our control and making the necessary changes to do so, and then navigating around the things that we can't. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. Before we go, I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And while we are a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, ladies, you too can become millionaires by finding your 20-year goal and putting towards effort to stick to it. So, with that being said, I want to thank you for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.